Have you ever wondered why some people seem to command respect without even saying a word? Why they walk into a room and instantly everyone listens? Or why certain leaders, no matter how controversial, always seem to stay in control while others crumble under pressure? The answer, my friends, lies in the untouchable mindset. This isn't about being the strongest, the smartest, or even the most charming. It's about mastering the perception of who you are, how you control your image, and how you make others see you. And that, my friends, is the secret to becoming untouchable. In this video, we'll break down the core principles that make someone untouchable: silence, emotional control, unpredictability, strategic alliances, and image crafting. But here's the thing, this isn't just theory. These are practical, actionable strategies that you can start using today to transform how the world sees you. Want to learn how to be a leader, not just in title, but in influence? Want to command respect from your peers and remain impervious to attacks? Then stick with me. Before we dive in, make sure to like this video, share it with anyone who could use this powerful insight, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss another strategy that can level up your life. And if you want to support the channel directly, hit that super thanks button below. Your support helps me create more content like this. So, let's jump right in and start mastering the art of becoming untouchable. In a world driven by first impressions and constant judgment, perception often becomes more powerful than reality. We are constantly evaluated by others based on what they see, not what is truly within us. This observation goes beyond the surface and directly influences how we are treated, the opportunities we receive, and ultimately, the power we wield. Machiavelli understood this deeply and suggested that perception is the foundation of power, stating, "It is better to be feared than loved." This principle is crucial not only in politics, but also in personal and professional relationships. To understand why perception is so influential, consider the dynamics of the workplace. Imagine two employees. One is always seen as approachable and friendly, while the other maintains a more distant and professional demeanor. In the short term, the friendly employee may be well liked, but in the long run, they could be taken advantage of or overlooked. On the other hand, the professional demeanor might seem cold or unapproachable, but it can also instill respect and awe, ensuring that others take them seriously and avoid testing their boundaries. The second employee is more likely to hold the reins of power simply because their image, though less warm, demands respect. The key to becoming untouchable isn't about being invincible. It's about controlling how others perceive you. If people view you as strong, capable, and unshakable, they will not challenge you. This is why Machiavelli's assertion that it is better to be feared than loved is so powerful. Fear, when properly managed, becomes a form of respect. It compels others to tread carefully around you, ensuring that you are not taken for granted. Consider a modern example. Steve Jobs, the co-founder of Apple. Jobs was known for his intensity and sometimes even his ruthless management style. However, he was respected and feared by his colleagues, which allowed him to push Apple to become one of the most innovative and successful companies in the world. His presence alone commanded attention, and people often feared disappointing him. They did not want to incur his wrath, which ultimately led to them performing at their best. Jobs knew the importance of perception and used it to shape how the world saw him and his company. Similarly, in politics, figures like Vladimir Putin have mastered the art of perception. Putin has carefully crafted an image of strength and decisiveness, which has led to a combination of fear and respect both within Russia and internationally. While his actions might not always be universally loved, the perception of him as a strong leader, unafraid to take bold actions, keeps him untouchable. Those who might wish to challenge him hesitate because they understand the consequences of doing so. This carefully constructed perception has allowed him to maintain power for years, despite facing internal and external pressures. These examples illustrate that being untouchable doesn't necessarily require invincibility. It requires the ability to control how others see you. Machiavelli's teachings emphasize that how people perceive you can either elevate or diminish your power. If you project strength, confidence, and decisiveness, you will create an aura of invulnerability that will prevent others from attacking you. This is why it is crucial to master the art of perception. It is the lens through which others see you, and it ultimately dictates how they treat you. In this video, we will explore how you can master the principle of perception to become untouchable. By the end of this lesson, you'll have learned how to create an image of strength, how to avoid appearing vulnerable, and how to manipulate how others perceive you to your advantage. It's not just about what you are, but about how others see you that will determine your success. The first step to becoming untouchable is understanding the power of appearances, especially when it comes to vulnerability. Machiavelli's famous quote, "Never bleed in front of wolves," reveals a profound truth about human behavior. If you show vulnerability, you invite attack. Vulnerability, in this context, is not about being emotionally open or authentic. Rather, it's about allowing others to see your weaknesses. Once they see where you are susceptible, they will exploit it to their advantage. To maintain power, you must learn to hide your vulnerabilities and present yourself as invulnerable, even when you're struggling internally. Why does showing vulnerability invite attack? The human mind is wired to look for weakness in others. In times of competition, people instinctively seek to gain an advantage over those they perceive as weaker. Whether in the business world, politics, or personal relationships, the moment you show weakness, people sense an opportunity. The wolves, as Machiavelli would say, can smell blood. When they see that you are bleeding, whether it's an emotional struggle, a professional setback, or a personal failure, they will move in for the kill. The irony is that showing vulnerability doesn't necessarily make you weak, it simply gives others the perception that you can be attacked. Once this perception is established, it's hard to shake off. Consider the example of former U.S. Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton. Throughout her political career, Clinton has been the subject of intense scrutiny and public challenges. However, she never allowed the public to see her as vulnerable. Even when faced with major setbacks, such as the scandal surrounding her use of a private email server or her loss in the 2016 presidential election, Clinton maintained an image of resilience and strength. Rather than publicly showing distress or weakness, she consistently projected composure and confidence. In doing so, she prevented her adversaries from gaining any psychological advantage over her. Her ability to appear untouchable, even in the face of significant challenges, allowed her to remain a powerful figure in politics, despite setbacks that would have ruined others' careers. Another example can be found in the world of business. Steve Jobs, the co-founder of Apple, was known for his intensity and high expectations. But he also had a reputation for presenting a facade of unwavering confidence, even during difficult times. When Apple was struggling in the late 1990s and on the verge of bankruptcy, Jobs did not show his team or the public how dire the situation was. Instead, he presented a vision of the company's future and exuded confidence that Apple would not only survive but thrive. By masking his vulnerability, Jobs ensured that those around him, his employees, investors, and competitors, didn't sense weakness. This allowed him to turn Apple around and make it one of the most valuable companies in the world. On the flip side, consider the downfall of leaders or public figures who have allowed their vulnerabilities to be exposed. For example, look at the rapid decline of some political figures when their personal struggles or failures were laid bare in the public eye. Once their vulnerabilities were exposed, they became targets for rivals and the media, unable to maintain their power or control. The moment these leaders showed cracks in their armor, their adversaries seized the opportunity to push them out. Vulnerability, in this case, led to the perception of weakness, and that perception quickly became their downfall. It's important to note that vulnerability isn't inherently bad. In fact, it's natural for everyone to face challenges, both personal and professional. However, when you're in a position of power or striving for influence, presenting yourself as invulnerable is essential. Vulnerability if left unchecked, can be weaponized by others to strip you of your power. By hiding your struggles, you can maintain the upper hand, protecting yourself from attacks. But how can you manage this in real life? The key is to internalize the idea that your personal battles should remain just that personal. Whether you're dealing with stress at work, a difficult relationship, or any other type of hardship, the world doesn't need to know. In fact, it's better that they don't. This doesn't mean you need to be dishonest or deceitful. It simply means you should be strategic about what you share and with whom. For instance, think about your professional relationships. If you're struggling with a project at work or facing pressure from upper management, don't let it show. If you appear overwhelmed or uncertain, your colleagues and supervisors will notice, and they may lose confidence in your abilities. Instead, maintain your composure. Present yourself as someone who can handle the pressure, someone who can be trusted to deliver, even when the going gets tough. By doing this, you protect your reputation and ensure that others continue to see you as a leader. The same principle applies to personal relationships. In any relationship, whether it's romantic, familial, or friendly, there are moments of vulnerability. However, if you want to maintain your power, you should never expose too much of your emotional self to others, especially when they don't need to know. Think about how often we overshare on social media, allowing the world to see our flaws and struggles. This act of exposure can lead to judgment, ridicule, or exploitation. Instead, keep your struggles private. People respect those who maintain their dignity, even when things are not going well. This doesn't mean pretending to be perfect. It means choosing when and where to show your vulnerabilities, and to whom. The lesson is clear. Vulnerability, when displayed in front of others, is an invitation for them to attack. You must present yourself as invulnerable, even when you are facing inner turmoil. The key is to manage your image carefully and to control what others see. Present strength, even when you're not feeling strong. The ability to appear untouchable is what will ultimately protect you and ensure your success, both in your personal and professional life. When you master this skill, you control how the world treats you, and you maintain your power in all circumstances. In conclusion, the most successful individuals, those who truly become untouchable, are not necessarily the strongest, but those who understand the power of perception. They know that showing vulnerability can lead to their exploitation, so they choose to conceal their weaknesses and project an image of unshakable strength. Whether you're facing personal struggles, professional setbacks, or external challenges, remember this: never bleed in front of wolves. By managing your vulnerability, you ensure that others can never use it against you, allowing you to remain untouchable no matter the circumstances. One of the most powerful tools at your disposal is silence. While it may seem counterintuitive in a world where communication is constant and expected, silence can be a weapon. In fact, unpredictability, fueled by silence, can be the difference between losing control and maintaining an untouchable position. Machiavelli's teachings emphasize the importance of being unreadable, speaking less, and observing more. By doing so, you cultivate an air of mystery, making it difficult for others to predict your next move. This, in turn, gives you the strategic advantage and the power to influence situations without ever saying a word. When you speak less and reveal little, you effectively create a sense of unpredictability. People are afraid of what they don't understand or can't anticipate. Silence, when wielded correctly, forces others to second-guess their assumptions, and this confusion works to your advantage. Machiavelli understood this principle very well. He believed that a person's ability to control the information they share and the timing of it was crucial to maintaining their power. Consider the case of Warren Buffett, one of the most successful investors in history. Buffett is famously tight-lipped, rarely revealing his investment strategies or plans ahead of time. He speaks only when necessary and keeps the details of his decisions private. This silence has allowed him to make moves in the stock market without tipping off others. His unpredictability has given him the power to take risks that others would shy away from, and he often catches competitors off guard. Buffett's approach to silence is a reflection of his strategic thinking. By keeping his intentions hidden, he ensures that others cannot react before he acts. In a world where markets are flooded with information, Buffett's silence gives him the upper hand. Another famous example of silence as a strategic tool comes from the business world with the story of Steve Jobs. Jobs was notorious for his cryptic communication style, particularly during the development of new Apple products. When working on groundbreaking innovations like the iPhone, Jobs would often say very little about the product until it was ready to be revealed. This secrecy not only kept competitors in the dark, but also built anticipation and excitement among customers. Jobs understood that silence could be used as a powerful tool, creating suspense and keeping everyone guessing. His ability to maintain an air of mystery about Apple's products gave him the upper hand in the marketplace, allowing him to control the narrative around his company and its products. Even outside the business world, silence has proven to be a potent strategy. In the realm of politics, a notable example is former U.S. President Dwight D. Eisenhower. Eisenhower was known for his calm demeanor and reluctance to speak publicly about sensitive issues. During the Cold War, Eisenhower often kept his thoughts to himself, avoiding making rash or inflammatory statements. This silence was not a sign of weakness. Instead, it gave him the space to observe the global political landscape, carefully strategizing before making his next move. His silence created an aura of unpredictability, allowing him to surprise both allies and enemies with his decisions. The power of silence lies in its ability to create an air of mystery. When you are silent, others are forced to fill the gaps with their own assumptions and interpretations. This gives you control over how people perceive you, and it prevents them from fully understanding your intentions. If you are constantly speaking, revealing your thoughts, and sharing your plans, you give others the opportunity to form a strategy against you. But if you speak less, people will be left wondering what you are thinking, and that uncertainty works to your advantage. This principle of silence and unpredictability is particularly important in high-stakes situations, where every move can have significant consequences. Imagine being in a negotiation where the stakes are high, whether it's a business deal, a political decision, or even a personal conflict. If you speak too much, you risk giving away your position and allowing the other side to use that information to their advantage. On the other hand, if you remain silent and observe, you can gather critical information without revealing your hand. This silence not only helps you assess the situation, but also puts pressure on the other party, forcing them to reveal more than they intend to. In one of the most famous instances of silence as a strategic tool, Winston Churchill, the British Prime Minister during World War II, often refrained from speaking on critical issues until he had fully assessed the situation. Churchill's ability to stay silent during moments of uncertainty allowed him to avoid making hasty decisions that could have had disastrous consequences. Instead, he carefully observed the actions of the Axis powers and his own allies before making a move. His silence gave him the time and space to craft strategies that would ultimately lead to victory. By withholding his words and observing carefully, Churchill maintained control over the narrative and his decision-making process. Unpredictability, however, is not only about silence, it's about controlling when and how you reveal information. If you reveal everything at once, others can make informed decisions and take countermeasures. But if you release information sparingly, you keep others on their toes. By choosing the right moment to speak, you keep people guessing and ensure that your words carry more weight when they're finally spoken. This strategic use of silence and unpredictability is what allows you to maintain control in high-stakes situations. A practical example of this can be seen in corporate negotiations. Consider a scenario where two companies are negotiating a merger or acquisition. One company might try to aggressively push their terms forward, speaking constantly about the benefits they bring to the table. The other company, on the other hand, might take a more reserved approach, speaking only when necessary and observing the flow of the conversation. The latter company might allow the first company to reveal too much about their position, using that information to their advantage later on. By staying silent and observing, The second company ensures that they have all the necessary information to make a strategic move. In everyday life, silence can also be a powerful tool in personal relationships. People often speak impulsively, revealing their thoughts and emotions without considering the consequences. But if you learn to speak less and observe more, you gain a better understanding of the dynamics at play. Silence allows you to process information, think critically, and respond strategically rather than react emotionally. This approach can help you navigate complex relationships and situations, giving you the ability to control the flow of conversation and maintain the upper hand. The lesson here is clear. Unpredictability gives you the strategic advantage. When you speak less and observe more, you become unreadable. People can no longer anticipate your next move, and that uncertainty works in your favor. Silence, when used strategically, creates a sense of power because it forces others to question what you are thinking and what you will do next. This unpredictability gives you the time and space to make decisions with clarity, without the pressure of others knowing your thoughts. Ultimately, silence and unpredictability allow you to remain in control, even when the stakes are high. In conclusion, silence is not just the absence of words. It is a strategic tool that allows you to control the narrative and maintain power. By speaking less and observing more, you create an aura of unpredictability that forces others to second-guess their assumptions. In high-stakes situations, silence gives you the space to assess the situation, gather information, and make decisions without revealing your hand. It is the ultimate form of power. When you remain unreadable, no one can predict your next move. And in a world where predictability is often seen as a weakness, your unpredictability will ensure that you always have the upper hand. Emotional control is one of the most crucial elements in achieving success, particularly when it comes to decision-making. In the high-stakes world of business, politics, or even personal relationships, the ability to detach from emotions and make decisions based on logic and strategy rather than on impulse or feeling can be the difference between success and failure. Machiavelli, a master strategist, knew this well. His advice to avoid emotional decision-making is timeless. Emotional decisions make you vulnerable. This insight highlights how allowing emotions to influence decisions can compromise your judgment and make you susceptible to manipulation or missteps. When we allow our emotions to dictate our decisions, we risk clouding our judgment, leading us to act impulsively based on temporary feelings rather than long-term strategies. The act of stepping back, detaching from the immediate emotional reaction, and assessing the situation calmly and rationally is critical for navigating complex situations. Emotional decisions often feel satisfying in the short term, but they rarely lead to the best outcomes in the long term. Instead, mastering emotional control allows us to turn emotions into tools that serve our strategic purposes, rather than letting them control us. One of the most striking examples of the importance of emotional detachment comes from the world of sports, particularly in high-pressure situations. Take the story of Michael Jordan, often regarded as the greatest basketball player of all time. Jordan was known for his intense competitiveness and passion for the game. But what set him apart from other athletes was his remarkable ability to control his emotions during critical moments. In the 1997 NBA Finals, during what is now famously known as the flu game, Jordan played one of the most memorable games of his career despite being visibly ill, dehydrated, and weak. He didn't let his physical condition or the frustration that surely came with it interfere with his performance. Instead of giving in to his exhaustion or feeling sorry for himself, Jordan focused solely on the game, keeping his emotions in check and channeling his energy into delivering a championship-winning performance. His ability to detach emotionally from the situation allowed him to make the strategic decisions necessary to secure the win for his team. The contrast to this can be seen in the business world, where emotional decisions can sometimes lead to disastrous consequences. Consider the case of a business leader making an impulsive decision during a period of market volatility. Imagine a CEO who, due to panic or anxiety over a sudden drop in stock prices, decide to sell off significant assets or make drastic cuts to the workforce. While the decision may feel like the right thing to do in the heat of the moment, it is driven by fear and emotion, not by a clear assessment of the situation. Such decisions, fueled by panic rather than logic, can harm the company in the long run, leading to lost opportunities, a tarnished reputation, or a decline in employee morale. On the other hand, leaders who can detach from their emotions and take a step back to analyze the situation from a strategic perspective often make better, more informed decisions. Take the example of Jeff Bezos during the early days of Amazon. In the late 1990s, when Amazon was still in its infancy, the company faced significant financial losses, and many analysts were skeptical about its long-term viability. However, Bezos remained focused on his long-term vision for the company, resisting the emotional impulse to scale back or abandon his plans. Instead, he strategically invested in technology, infrastructure, and market expansion, with the understanding that short-term losses were a necessary part of building a sustainable business. By staying emotionally detached from the immediate setbacks and focusing on his broader goals, Bezos ultimately turned Amazon into one of the most successful companies in history. Emotions, in and of themselves, are not inherently bad. They are a natural part of the human experience, and they can be powerful motivators when harnessed correctly. The key is not to suppress emotions entirely, but to regulate them so that they do not interfere with strategic thinking and decision-making. For instance, if you're negotiating a business deal, it's easy to become emotionally invested in the outcome. However, if you allow that emotional investment to cloud your judgment, you may make compromises that aren't in your best interest. The better approach is to acknowledge the emotions at play, whether it's excitement, frustration, or anxiety, while simultaneously keeping your focus on the end goal. This emotional awareness allows you to make more rational, calculated decisions. A personal story might further illustrate the importance of emotional detachment in decision-making. I once found myself in a situation where an emotional reaction nearly led to a career setback. I was working on a project with a tight deadline when a colleague made a mistake that set us back by several days. In the heat of the moment, I felt frustration boiling up inside me. I was tempted to confront the colleague angrily, to let them know how much their mistake had cost us. But I took a moment to step back and detach from the situation. Instead of reacting impulsively, I focused on finding a solution to get the project back on track. By calmly addressing the issue, rather than letting my emotions take over, I was able to salvage the project and maintain a positive relationship with my colleague. Had I reacted emotionally, I could have damaged the working dynamic and potentially jeopardized the success of the project. This experience taught me that emotional detachment is not about ignoring or denying emotions, it's about managing them so they don't control our actions. It's about recognizing when emotions are clouding our judgment and choosing to take a step back before making decisions that could have lasting consequences. By learning to detach from our feelings in high-pressure situations, we can make more thoughtful and strategic decisions. Emotions can be powerful tools when used correctly. For instance, anger can be a motivating force, pushing us to take action against injustice or to stand up for ourselves when necessary. Similarly, passion can drive creativity and innovation. However, when these emotions are not controlled, they can lead to impulsive decisions, hasty actions, and outcomes that don't align with our long-term goals. The key is to use emotional energy strategically, not reactively. Instead of allowing emotions to dictate our actions, we should ask ourselves, what is the most strategic decision I can make right now? In high-stakes situations, such as in business negotiations, sports, or even personal relationships, emotional detachment can provide a distinct advantage. When others are caught up in their emotions, reacting impulsively and making rash decisions, you can maintain composure and assess the situation logically. This gives you the ability to plan your next move carefully and execute it with precision, without the interference of emotional turbulence. Being able to maintain emotional control allows you to operate from a place of strength, making you less vulnerable to manipulation or mistakes. The lesson is clear. Emotional control is not about denying your feelings, but about using them strategically. Emotions can provide valuable insight into what we care about and what drives us, but they should not dictate our decisions. By learning to detach from our immediate emotional reactions and focus on long-term goals, we can make decisions that are better aligned with our values and strategic objectives. Emotional detachment is not a denial of humanity, but a conscious choice to prioritize rationality, foresight, and self-control in the decision-making process. In conclusion, Machiavelli's advice about emotional detachment resonates as strongly today as it did in his time. Emotional decisions make us vulnerable, whereas controlled emotions empower us to make strategic choices that protect our interests and our power. Whether in the heat of a business negotiation, a high-pressure sports moment, or a personal conflict, the ability to detach from emotions and think clearly can make all the difference. By mastering emotional control, we turn our feelings into tools that serve our strategy, allowing us to navigate even the most complex situations with calmness, focus, and purpose. When we think about power and leadership, many people romanticize the idea of being loved or admired by those around them. After all, who wouldn't want to be the person everyone looks up to and admires? However, in the real world of power dynamics and influence, love is often a fragile foundation. The more practical, more enduring form of respect comes from fear. Machiavelli's principle that it's better to be feared than loved speaks directly to the harsh realities of leadership and power. In truth, respect rooted in fear is far more dependable than affection, and loyalty, as Machiavelli observed, is often transactional, not emotional. The core of Machiavelli's teaching is that people will follow you not out of a genuine sense of love, but because they are afraid of the consequences if they do not. Fear ensures compliance because it creates a sense of control and power. When people fear the repercussions of crossing you, they are less likely to challenge you, making them far more loyal than if they simply loved you. The question becomes, how do you balance the fear of respect with the need for loyalty in your own life? And how do you use fear effectively, not as a tool of cruelty, but as a means of maintaining control and respect? Take a look at historical figures who inspired fear and respect in equal measure, and it becomes clear how this principle played out in real life. One such example is Napoleon Bonaparte, the French military leader who rose to prominence during the French Revolution. Napoleon was feared by his enemies and his soldiers alike. He was known for his strategic brilliance, but also for his ruthlessness. He didn't rely on being loved by his troops. Instead, he commanded their respect through his actions, his strength, and his ability to win battles. His soldiers knew that failure to comply with his orders could result in severe consequences. But more importantly, they feared the repercussions of failing to meet his expectations. While Napoleon's leadership style was certainly tough and unforgiving, it ensured that his troops were loyal to him, not because they loved him, but because they feared what would happen if they didn't follow his command. Napoleon's power lay in his ability to combine strategic brilliance with the aura of invincibility. His fearsome reputation made it difficult for anyone to challenge his leadership. The loyalty of his troops wasn't based on affection, but on the leverage he held over them. If they disobeyed, they would suffer the consequences. The real fear that propelled his leadership wasn't about punishment alone, but about the constant reminder that Napoleon was a force that should not be trifled with. Similarly, in the world of business, Steve Jobs presents a modern example of how fear, coupled with respect, creates a powerful leadership dynamic. Steve Jobs was notorious for his perfectionism and the demanding nature he imposed on his team at Apple. While many employees loved working at Apple for its innovative culture, there was a deep undercurrent of fear surrounding Jobs. He had a reputation for being difficult to work with, and many employees feared disappointing him. But this fear didn't make them resent him. Rather, it drove them to perform at their highest level. Jobs' fear-based leadership pushed Apple to create some of the most revolutionary products in the tech industry. Jobs didn't rely on emotional connections to maintain control over his team. Instead, he demanded respect through his relentless pursuit of excellence and his ability to make bold, often uncomfortable decisions. His leadership was rooted in the expectation that his employees would rise to the challenge of his vision, with the understanding that failing to meet those expectations came with consequences. That was the leverage he held. The lesson here is clear. While affection and admiration can certainly be motivating, they are fleeting and unreliable. People may love you, but their loyalty often depends on what you can offer them at any given moment. Love and affection, as Machiavelli notes, can be transactional in nature. The person who gives you affection may only do so because they expect something in return, whether it's approval, benefits, or access to resources. Fear ensures that people comply because they understand the consequences of crossing you. In personal relationships, it's often the case that people can grow emotionally attached. But when those emotions are not met with corresponding actions, relationships can sour. In a business context, if you rely on affection to foster loyalty, you risk creating an environment where people act out of self-interest, not out of genuine respect or loyalty. When the chips are down, when resources are scarce. A perfect example of how fear-based respect can ensure loyalty is seen in figures like Joseph Stalin. Stalin ruled the Soviet Union with an iron fist, and his leadership was marked by a widespread atmosphere of fear. While Stalin certainly had supporters who admired him, it was the fear of retribution that kept his allies loyal and his enemies at bay. Those who defied him or were suspected of disloyalty were often eliminated, reinforcing the notion that loyalty to Stalin was not about affection, but about survival. Stalin's reign was built on this principle. Respect was ensured through fear, and loyalty was a product of that fear. However, there is a significant distinction between using fear as a tool of manipulation and using it as a method of maintaining respect and control. The key is to ensure that the fear is rooted in respect for your strength and leadership, not out of personal cruelty or tyrannical behavior. Fear, when used correctly, can command respect and ensure that people align with your vision. But when misused, it can create resentment, rebellion, and ultimately the breakdown of trust and loyalty. The goal is not to instill terror for the sake of control, but to maintain an environment where respect is earned through your strength and decision-making capabilities. The lesson here is not that fear should be your only tool, but that it is one of the most powerful tools available when combined with strength, vision, and decisiveness. The loyalty that comes from fear is not blind obedience, but is based on the understanding that crossing you would lead to significant consequences. This fear-based loyalty ensures that your power is maintained because people will be hesitant to challenge you, understanding that there are costs to such actions. To cultivate this type of respect, it's crucial to focus on projecting strength rather than seeking affection. Strength doesn't always come from being loud, domineering, or overtly aggressive. Sometimes strength is about consistency, decisiveness, and maintaining a calm, composed demeanor. People respect those who are unwavering in their convictions, those who make tough decisions, and those who do not waver under pressure. This type of strength commands respect and fosters loyalty built on the understanding that crossing you will come with consequences. Ultimately, Machiavelli's principle is a reminder that loyalty, in the truest sense, is not based on love, but on the leverage that you hold over others. Respect that comes from fear is stronger and more lasting because it is rooted in the understanding that power comes with consequences. If you want to create an environment where people follow you, where they respect your leadership, and where loyalty is unwavering, you must focus on cultivating respect through strength and leverage, not affection and emotional attachment. Fear is a tool not of cruelty, but of strategic power, and it's one of the most reliable foundations of true leadership. The concept of access, or more importantly, controlling access to oneself, is one of the most crucial yet often overlooked strategies in maintaining power. The more accessible you are to others, the more vulnerable you become. This vulnerability doesn't necessarily mean physical weakness, but rather the potential for others to exploit your time, energy, resources, and even your emotional state. Machiavelli, in his timeless wisdom, understood this principle well and emphasized the importance of controlling access to oneself in order to safeguard one's position and maintain influence. As he put it, you must control access to yourself to protect your position. In today's hyper-connected world, where constant communication is the norm, the ability to manage how and when people can reach you has never been more important. The modern world, with its endless demands on our time and attention, presents an environment where your vulnerabilities can be exploited at every turn. Whether it's through social media, personal relationships, or business interactions, too much access can lead to the erosion of your power and influence. This is why the most powerful individuals, whether in politics, business, or other areas, are often those who understand and strategically control who can reach them, when they can be reached, and what information they allow others to have. Take a moment to consider the behavior of a successful political leader like Angela Merkel, the former Chancellor of Germany. Merkel's leadership was marked by her ability to maintain a certain level of mystery and distance from both the public and the media. Despite her position as one of the most powerful leaders in Europe, she was known for keeping her personal life private and maintaining a low public profile outside of formal engagements. By controlling her access to the public, Merkel avoided the distractions and potential exploitation that often come with being constantly available. Her ability to limit how much people knew about her personal life and her decision-making process allowed her to maintain control over her position. This strategic approach to controlling access ensured that she remained in power for over 16 years, without the constant pressure of public scrutiny that other, more accessible leaders often faced. Similarly, consider the example of Steve Jobs, co-founder of Apple, who was known for his enigmatic and sometimes aloof persona. Jobs understood that constant availability could lead to exploitation, not just of his time, but of his ideas and vision. He created a persona that was both distant and controlling, which contributed to the aura of invincibility surrounding him and Apple. Jobs was extremely selective about who had access to him and to his ideas. By limiting the flow of information and controlling when and how he made himself available, Jobs was able to maintain a level of power that allowed him to shape the future of technology without being bogged down by constant requests and distractions. The more accessible you are, the more likely it is that others will take advantage of your time and resources, thereby diluting your influence. The ability to control access is not just about limiting physical or emotional availability. It is also about controlling the flow of information. In business, for example, the most successful executives are often those who guard the most sensitive details about their company's strategies, goals, and internal workings. Bill Gates, the co-founder of Microsoft, was known for being very private about his business decisions and the future direction of his company. He understood that revealing too much to too many people could weaken his strategic position and give competitors a chance to exploit any perceived weaknesses. By maintaining a certain level of mystery and by carefully controlling who had access to him, Gates was able to protect Microsoft's innovations and outpace competitors in the rapidly evolving tech industry. Access control doesn't just apply to high-profile business and political figures, it also has personal applications. In everyday life, our relationships, whether professional or personal, are often shaped by how much we allow others to access us emotionally and mentally. Think about how a successful manager in any industry operates. They're selective about the people with whom they spend time, and they set clear boundaries to prevent others from taking advantage of their emotional energy or time. This doesn't mean being cold or unkind. It means recognizing the importance of protecting your personal space and energy so that you can perform at your highest level without being constantly drained by others' demands. In a professional setting, Access control can be seen in the way high-performing individuals structure their workday. For example, many CEOs and entrepreneurs deliberately set aside time for focused work, during which they're completely unavailable to their teams. This period of uninterrupted time allows them to strategize, think critically, and make decisions without the constant barrage of emails, calls, and meetings. By controlling when and how they engage with their team, these leaders protect their ability to think creatively and act strategically. The boundaries they set allow them to maintain a higher level of productivity and influence, which ultimately benefits both them and their organizations. However, access control is not just about keeping people at a distance. It's also about who you allow into your inner circle. In a corporate environment, leaders who allow too many people access to them, without distinguishing between those who can contribute positively and those who are simply seeking personal gain, risk becoming overwhelmed and distracted. They may end up surrounded by sycophants or opportunists who take advantage of their time and position without offering any real value in return. Successful individuals are selective about the people they surround themselves with, choosing to invest their time and energy in those who add value and contribute meaningfully to their goals. This selective access ensures that they are not exploited by others and that their power remains intact. There is also an element of emotional vulnerability in the concept of access control. We all have emotional limits, and if too many people have access to our emotions, whether through constant demands, manipulative behavior, or overly personal relationships, we risk becoming emotionally drained and losing our ability to function at a high level. For example, imagine a manager who constantly listens to the complaints and personal issues of their team. While this might seem like a good way to build rapport and maintain positive relationships, over time, it can lead to emotional burnout. The manager may feel overwhelmed by the constant emotional demands of others, which can affect their decision-making and leadership ability. By controlling access to their emotional energy, choosing to listen when necessary, but not allowing others to drain them, they can maintain their mental and emotional well-being, which in turn helps them make better decisions and retain control over their leadership role. Similarly, in personal relationships, setting boundaries is essential to protecting your emotional health. For example, imagine someone who is constantly available to their friends and family, always saying yes to requests and never taking time for themselves. Over time, this constant availability can lead to feelings of resentment and exhaustion, as the individual's needs are consistently put on the back burner. In contrast, someone who has mastered the art of access control knows when to say no and when to protect their own emotional space. By setting clear boundaries, they maintain their energy and ensure that their relationships are healthy and mutually respectful. The lesson here is that controlling access is one of the most effective ways to protect your power and influence. By limiting who can reach you, when they can reach you, and what they can access about you, whether it's your time, your energy, or your ideas, you maintain a level of control that is essential for long-term success. This applies in business, in personal relationships, and in leadership. Those who fail to control access to themselves risk being exploited, distracted, or drained, ultimately losing the power they've worked so hard to build. Maintaining boundaries is not about being closed off or unapproachable. It's about recognizing that your time, energy, and emotional resources are valuable, and they should be carefully guarded. Whether you're a CEO, a manager, a parent, or simply an individual trying to navigate the demands of life, the more accessible you are, the more vulnerable you become. By controlling access to yourself, you protect not only your position but your well-being, and you ensure that you are in control of your own fate. The key to long-term power and influence lies in the ability to maintain those boundaries, setting clear limits, being selective about who and what you allow in, and ensuring that your time and energy are used in the most strategic and effective way possible. In a world of power and influence, emotions can cloud judgment, and relationships built solely on affection often lack the strength to endure when tested. Machiavelli's teachings offer a valuable lesson. Forming strategic alliances rather than emotional friendships is key to securing loyalty and power, love and affection, while useful in personal relationships, are fleeting in the business world and the arena of leadership. On the other hand, leverage a strategic, mutually beneficial relationship builds long-lasting loyalty and influence. Strategic alliances, by definition, are relationships based on mutual benefit and the understanding that both parties will gain from the collaboration. These alliances are founded on shared goals, clear expectations, and the alignment of interests. Unlike emotional bonds, which can shift with personal feelings and external factors, strategic alliances are rooted in the recognition that both parties stand to lose if the relationship falls apart. This mutual dependence makes the alliance stronger, more reliable, and less likely to dissolve in times of conflict. Machiavelli's insight that leverage keeps people loyal, not love, is a powerful reminder that true loyalty comes from the security of mutual interests, not emotional attachment. In fact, love or affection can often lead to vulnerabilities, as it can be exploited or manipulated by others seeking personal gain. On the other hand, leverage, when applied correctly, ensures that loyalty is maintained by reinforcing the idea that breaking the alliance would result in personal loss. One of the best examples of strategic alliances leading to power can be found in the rise of the Roman Empire. Julius Caesar's ascent to power was largely due to his ability to form strategic alliances with key political figures. The most notable of these alliances was the First Triumvirate, a political alliance between Caesar, Pompey, and Crassus. Each of these men had different motives for joining forces. Pompey sought recognition for his military victories. Crassus sought political influence and wealth, and Caesar wanted support for his political career. These men knew that their individual ambitions could be achieved more effectively by working together than by going at it alone. However, this alliance was built on leverage, not love. Each member understood that they needed the others to further their own interests. Crassus provided financial support, Pompey contributed military strength, and Caesar offered political acumen. The triumvirate was not based on emotional bonds or deep personal affection, but on the recognition that their collective power would give each of them an advantage. Over time, however, the alliance began to unravel as each member sought to secure more power for themselves, and personal ambitions took over. Ultimately, the triumvirate fell apart. But the relationships were not built on affection in the first place. They were strategic alliances designed to leverage the strengths of each individual. Caesar's eventual rise to supreme power demonstrates the importance of leveraging strategic alliances. While Pompey and Crassus were both formidable allies at the time, Caesar's ability to leverage his alliances and shift power dynamics when necessary allowed him to secure his place as the most powerful leader in Rome. His relationship with the Senate, military leaders, and even his former allies was one built on leverage and strategic benefits, not love or personal attachment. Caesar's ability to build these alliances allowed him to navigate the ever-changing political landscape of Rome and ultimately gain the loyalty of the Roman people and the military. In the modern business world, strategic alliances play an equally important role. One of the most significant business alliances in recent history is the partnership between Apple and Foxconn. Apple, a technology company, and Foxconn, a Chinese electronics manufacturer, formed a strategic alliance that allowed Apple to scale its production and dominate the tech market. Apple provided Foxconn with the technology and brand power it needed to manufacture its devices at scale, while Foxconn provided Apple with the manufacturing capacity and labor force to meet the massive global demand for its products. This alliance was built on leverage. Both companies benefited greatly from the relationship, but it was not founded on affection or emotional bonds. Foxconn's role was purely strategic. The company knew that by aligning itself with Apple, it could tap into one of the most valuable brands in the world and secure large contracts. For Apple, Foxconn provided a cost-effective and efficient solution for mass production. enabling the company to focus on innovation and marketing. Their alliance created a symbiotic relationship that helped both companies thrive in a competitive global market. This partnership was successful not because of emotional ties, but because both companies understood that working together created a mutually beneficial situation. The leverage they provided one another ensured loyalty and collaboration. In contrast, emotional bonds and business relationships can often lead to exploitation. For example, in the world of startups, founders may form close personal relationships with investors, believing that affection and trust will lead to long-term success. However, investors are ultimately driven by the desire for returns on their investments. When a business faces financial difficulties or begins to underperform, the emotional attachment between the founder and investor may not be enough to secure the long-term support of the investor. At that point, the founder may realize that the investor's loyalty was never truly based on affection or personal investment. It was based on the potential for profit. This realization can be devastating for founders who are relying on emotional bonds to ensure their business's survival. Another example of the importance of strategic alliances and leverage in business can be found in the partnership between Bill Gates and Paul Allen, the co-founders of Microsoft. The success of Microsoft was built on the strategic alignment of both men's skills and resources. Gates brought the technical knowledge and vision for software, while Allen provided the business insight and expertise in marketing. Together, they formed an alliance that was focused on building the world's leading software company. This partnership was not based on deep emotional attachment, but on the recognition that they needed each other to succeed. Their leverage came from their complementary skills and the recognition that they both stood to gain from the success of Microsoft. This strategic alliance, like many others, highlights the difference between building a relationship based on mutual benefit and one built on affection. In the case of Gates and Allen, their loyalty to one another was rooted in the understanding that both would succeed through their collaboration, not because they loved or emotionally supported one another. The success of Microsoft was based on their ability to leverage each other's strengths, not on any personal affection or emotional connection. Even when they eventually parted ways, their relationship was not based on emotional bonds, and their separate ventures were able to thrive independently. The lesson here is clear. In both business and life, emotional bonds can create blind spots, while strategic alliances based on leverage create clear, mutually beneficial relationships. It's important to recognize that loyalty, in the context of power and influence, is often transactional. People who are loyal to you because they care about you may quickly abandon you if their interests change. On the other hand, people who are loyal to you because they understand the benefits of your alliance will remain loyal as long as their interests are aligned with yours. This understanding allows you to build relationships that endure even in times of conflict or adversity. When building strategic alliances, it's important to focus on what each party brings to the table. Rather than seeking emotional validation or affection, focus on how you and the other person or entity can benefit from working together. Look for areas where your strengths complement theirs, where your goals align, and where mutual support can lead to shared success. By forming these kinds of alliances, you protect your position and build relationships that are not dependent on fickle emotions, but on leverage and mutual benefit. The key takeaway is that leverage, not love, keeps people loyal. Emotional connections can be easily manipulated, and loyalty based on affection can fade when the relationship no longer serves one party's interests. Strategic alliances, on the other hand, are grounded in mutual benefit and shared goals. By building these types of alliances, you create loyalty that is stable, reliable, and long-lasting. These alliances allow you to maintain power and influence, ensuring that the people around you remain loyal because they understand the value of the relationship, not because they are emotionally attached to you. When you focus on leverage rather than love, you set the foundation for success that can withstand the challenges of time, conflict, and change. To truly become untouchable, one must carefully craft their identity and be intentional about controlling how they are perceived. Power, as Machiavelli so astutely observed, is not about truth, it is about perception. This insight is one of the cornerstones of mastering influence, control, and dominance in any area of life, whether in personal relationships, business, or politics. The ability to control how others perceive you is what creates an aura of invulnerability, making it much harder for people to manipulate or undermine your position. Let's reflect on the key principles that contribute to this untouchable mindset: silence, emotional control, unpredictability, strategic alliances, and image crafting. Each of these elements is a strategic tool, not merely a passive behavior or reaction. When employed correctly, they create an aura of power that others cannot easily touch or challenge. Silence is one of the most powerful tools in your arsenal. In a world where people often speak too much, reveal too much, and give away their thoughts too freely, silence creates an air of mystery and unpredictability. When you speak less, you leave others guessing. They can never quite figure out what you're thinking, and this uncertainty keeps them on edge. This gives you the advantage, as people are much more likely to respect someone they can't read or predict. Silence also allows you to observe others without revealing your position, giving you crucial insight into how people operate. By mastering the art of silence, you make yourself a more formidable force, as your next move is always shrouded in mystery. Emotional control plays an equally vital role in achieving the untouchable mindset. Emotion is a double-edged sword. It can fuel us to take action and push through adversity, but it can also cloud our judgment and lead us to make impulsive, reckless decisions. By learning to detach from our immediate feelings, we are able to make decisions based on logic and strategy rather than emotional impulses. This emotional detachment doesn't mean suppressing feelings or becoming cold-hearted. Rather, it's about using emotions as tools for strength and clarity. When others around you are reacting emotionally, you can remain calm and strategic, which gives you an undeniable edge. Unpredictability is another key trait of the untouchable mindset. By keeping others on their toes, they never know what to expect from you. People tend to fear what they can't understand, and this fear translates into respect. Unpredictability keeps others from feeling comfortable enough to challenge you, because they don't know what your next move will be. Whether it's in negotiations, leadership, or personal interactions, when you keep people guessing, they become less likely to test you or push your boundaries. Strategic alliances are also an essential aspect of the untouchable mindset. By building relationships based on leverage, not affection, you secure loyalty that is far stronger and longer lasting than any emotional bond. When people are aligned with your interests and goals, they're less likely to betray you or undermine you. The key here is recognizing that loyalty is transactional. People are loyal to you because they stand to gain from your success. This understanding allows you to form alliances that are mutually beneficial and therefore much harder to break. Building strategic alliances is about recognizing where your power lies and aligning yourself with others who can either protect or enhance that power. Finally, image crafting is perhaps the most important element of the untouchable mindset. In a world driven by perceptions, how others view you is often more important than who you truly are. The most powerful individuals are those who carefully craft their public persona, ensuring that their image aligns with their goals. Whether you want to be seen as a powerful leader, a competent business person, or an influential figure in your personal life, controlling your image is key. By ensuring that others perceive you as strong, competent, and unshakable, you create an aura of invulnerability that makes it difficult for anyone to challenge your position. Machiavelli's final thought on power is about perception, not truth, is a reminder that what others believe about you holds more weight than the facts. In the modern world, where social media and the public eye can be both a blessing and a curse, crafting the right image has never been more critical. People will judge you based on what they see, not what is true. Whether it's your professional achievements, your personal appearance, or the way you communicate, everything contributes to the image you present to the world. Those who can control their image and ensure that their public persona aligns with their true goals are the ones who ultimately hold power. To apply these principles in your own life, it's essential to be intentional about how you manage your public image. Start by recognizing that power is often derived from how you present yourself, not necessarily from your abilities or qualifications. How do people perceive you in the workplace, in your social circles, or in your personal relationships? Do you project strength, decisiveness, and control, or do you allow yourself to be seen as weak, indecisive, or vulnerable? By consciously crafting your image to reflect strength, confidence, and power, you ensure that others will treat you accordingly. Next, practice emotional control. In moments of stress, frustration, or anger, it's easy to react impulsively. However, this behavior can undermine your authority and weaken your position. When you're in a leadership role or trying to influence others, it's important to stay calm and composed, even in the face of adversity. By remaining emotionally detached, you can make decisions that are more thoughtful and strategic, rather than driven by the heat of the moment. Master the art of silence and unpredictability. Don't feel compelled to speak just because others do. Keep people guessing about your intentions and strategies. When you reveal less about yourself and your plans, others will hesitate before acting against you. This unpredictability creates an aura of power that commands respect and makes others more likely to align with your objectives. Building strategic alliances is another crucial aspect of becoming untouchable. Recognize that relationships based on mutual benefit and shared goals will always be stronger than those based on emotion. Align yourself with people who can support your goals and offer leverage in return. These alliances create a network of loyalty that will protect you when things get tough. Ultimately, the untouchable mindset is about controlling your own narrative, controlling how others see you, and creating a powerful, unshakable presence. It requires strategic thinking, emotional discipline, and a deep understanding of how perception shapes power. By applying these principles, silence, emotional control, unpredictability, strategic alliances, and image crafting, you can create a foundation of power that is difficult to challenge. You will become a force to be reckoned with. Someone who commands respect and remains untouchable in the face of challenges, no matter the circumstances. Power, after all, is not about being invincible, it's about ensuring that others see you as invulnerable. By carefully managing how you present yourself to the world and aligning yourself with the right people, you create a legacy of power that cannot easily be undermined. The key to lasting success is not only in achieving power, but in maintaining it. To remain untouchable, you must master the art of perception and cultivate an image that ensures you remain in control, no matter the challenges that come your way. Now that you've unlocked the principles of becoming untouchable, it's time to put them into action. Remember, power is not about being invincible. It's about controlling how others perceive you and maintaining an aura of invulnerability. Whether it's through silence, emotional control, unpredictability, or strategic alliances, these tools will give you the strength to navigate the challenges of life with confidence and composure. But this is just the beginning. The untouchable mindset isn't a one-time lesson, it's a way of life. So, take what you've learned today and apply it in your personal and professional relationships. Watch how your influence grows, how others start to respect you, and how the game of life becomes yours to win. If you found value in this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more tips on power, strategy, and influence. And remember, if you want to show extra support and help me keep creating these valuable lessons, feel free to drop a super thanks below. Your generosity helps me continue bringing you content that can truly change your life. Stay ahead, stay unpredictable, and remember the power to control your future is in your hands. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.